Welcome, Cow Horse, Full Contact by Ben Self, with host Chris Dawson and Russell Dilday.
Cow Horse Full Contact is a view into the industry from our eyes, seeing some of the people that we've seen and grown up with, and getting to hear some of the stories we've loved our whole cow horse lives and would like to share with you. And along the way, we might come up with a little bit of information that helps you on your journey in the cow horse.
Today, we're sitting down with the legendary Sam Rose, a major driving force behind the World Show moving to Texas and reaching the pinnacle of success that we're enjoying today. We're looking forward to getting his perspective on the evolution of cow horse competition. Afternoon, Sam.
Hey, good to be here, Chris.
Yes, sir. So we're here with Russell Dilday and Sam Rose, and we are trying to kind of have some shows leading up to this World's Greatest Horseman and try and want to get a little some kind of a judge's viewpoint.
Okay.
Seen a lot of evolution in this event in the last 20 years that we've been having it. And
exactly.
So, 20th anniversary. So kind of want to start out and kind of talk about a little of that.
Well, I don't know. I can't remember what year, but I went there with it, with a mare one time, made the finals, and I was pretty green. I grew up around cattle and roping and cutting and doing all that stuff, but I was still pretty green as far as going down the fence. Probably still are, but I remember when Ron won it, I think I was judging it. Back in those days, and when they had it at the Lazy E, a few of the West Coast guys came, but some of them didn't rope very good. So they thought that was a long haul just for one horse, one rider. So anyway, there would be 18, maybe so 20, if I'm guessing. Russell can probably help me there. But there just wasn't that many horses and that many guys that could do all four events. They could do three, but the roping kind of took a toll on a few of them, So as time went on, we passed till it came to Fort Worth, and then things seemed to grow, and we incorporated it with a World Show, which that started at Stephenville to San Angelo to Fort Worth. And back in those days, there weren't that many horses that could really excel in all four events, and riders too. So anyway, I think the roping had more to do with it than the other three. So anyway, with that being said, I think that now, if I remember last year, there was 51, 2 in the World's Greatest, and then they started the junior deal, and that's a big hit, let the kids come. So anyway, with that going back and forth, we all froze at Stephenville.
Right.
And then we moved to San Angelo, great arena there, just not a big enough town, but they still filled it up pretty much there for the World's Greatest Finals and stuff. So that's really the premier event. What we find now is I think having used to back that I can remember, the two-rein horse, it was costly, no money. And I think really with going forward with the Bridle Spectaculars, the West Coast Bridle Spectacular, all those things, it let people hold those horses over. And, you can make some money with a horse now, just in the bridle classes. Sure. If you have a good one, you sure can. I mean, they'll pay their way.
Right.
That's a big deal. You bet.
They're probably the best money because they're already made, and you can show forever in the bridle. Talk about a little bit about how the evolution of the value in the bridle horse has come around since the World's Richest.
Well, I think the World's Richest, that was a big deal.
I meant the World's Greatest.
I know, Russell, because you had something to do with the World's Richest. But anyway, make a long story short, talking to that, I was at the first one there. Anyway, we had no way of catching Ron on his horse, but there was a lot of difference between first and second. So anyway, it was still worth the trip to go to win your money back, or at least have that kind of presentation there for the Open Bridle. But I think with the world's greatest now, there's more horses. The guys all rope fairly decent now. I mean, they all catch, you know, and it's really a spectator sport. You know, the first year they had it at Fort Worth, they had the herd work in the Watt Arena. That's probably the worst arena to try to show a cutting horse in at all the facility that Fort Worth has. So things, they had the finals, I believe, back in the herd work in the John Justin, which was a lot better, flat fence and cattle spread out. And it's just a better place. It is. Everybody can get there's plenty of cattle there. There's 4 or 5 cows to the horse there in the finals. And, you know, there's cattle to cut. There sure is.
The difference in the rope, how much better people have gotten in the roping, I think, and I want your take on this, is how many people we're getting from a roping background that are training now versus a long time ago. It just seems like there's a lot of people that really rope that are trained in cow horses now.
You know, before the world's greatest started, guys can refresh me, they used to have a stock horse championship in California. Then they did the 4 events, but you could get someone else to come in there and rope on your horse. That's going further back.
Sure.
But anyway, I agree with Russell somewhat. I don't agree with him all the time, you know, but I think the guys, you take Telford and Matt Cook and guys like that. Boyd, he roped all his life, and go on and on and on. I mean, everybody there has a chance. It's just, I used to, you would, and you still see it, people that will excel in the cutting, and you see some that excel in the reining, and then you see people that used to rope for a living, or they still do, and then it all comes down to the fence. But you can't stump your toe in that and make the stumble into the finals there now. So there's a lot of good horses now, and the breed of the horse has got better. The old guys that I grew up with as a kid, you know, you would never hear if you done something well or good. You'd hear when you didn't do something well or good, you know, and they weren't much about trying to teach people. And I think the new generation of the cow horse people are more accessible to a young trainer. There's better ways to learn. There's more, I'm not going to say camaraderie, but it's the old guys they'd tell you just enough to get you to enter, you know, and that didn't matter if it's a cutting or what, you know. So anyway, with that going up till now, you know, all those guys are willing to help, you know. I'd say Chris is. I don't know if anybody'd want any Russell's help or not, but anyway,
just
with
as a life coach.
Yeah. So, but anyway, I know Corey and all those guys, you know, that win, and they're the stars now, you know, and I think just the horse, the breeding from the older horses that used to show. I did an interview here, not this year at the NCHA fraternity, but last year, and they interviewed me down there, and what's the difference between the early horses that won the world championship, which was a big deal then, and it still is, but there's always special horses in any discipline that really set the tone, you know, of the day. I believe that the great horses, fence horses from yesterday could show today too. Mm-hmm. You know, they might not be as dramatic in the reining, but they still kind of know how to go ahead of cow on the fence. Sure. and get in the right spot.
Sure.
You know?
Well, you see them old videos, you know, and you'll see some. I know I've noticed there's some that, yeah, you could plug that right in.
Well, sure.
And then there's some of them that I've been a little disappointed in.
Well,
to be honest with you, you know,
it's the evolution of the horse,
Sure.
you know, and the bloodlines and
the show.
and the shows and the ground and everything's
Ground.
just better. You know, it is better. It is better.
When Greg was sick, Tana, my wife, had her dad trained with Greg young, and they had a ton of old on the reel videos. So Tana had taken them and put them onto VHS, updated to VHS, which is gone now. But I took a copy over to Greg to watch while he was, you know, down for a little bit. And he said, man, I'm glad you brought that over, because I got to thinking that now these horses are not as good as they used to be. We used to be so much better. But he said, boy, after watching that video, that reining was a little rough. But in watching them, I did feel like the cow work was not far off in the old days. They're working cattle on picket fences and chain link, and they're making turns, and they're going fast.
Getting on their hawk and getting back out of there, and there wasn't no circling turn.
Pretty much on a loose bridle rein, too.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes, on loose rein.
Yeah.
The reining was, I kind of, one thing that was enjoyable about the reining back then, they had no hesitation.
Yeah.
So the reining run was so fast that it was it was more fun to watch. But the headset and the tail set and the open mouth deal was just not, it wasn't how Greg remembered, obviously.
No, I'm sure. But as far as the fence horses go, it's like any sport. You know, you see horses that are trendsetters, and you know, they have their day. But you know, there's just special horses that excel, that time has nothing to do with it. That's what I do believe that.
Yeah, there's some, looking back and looking now, I think, Sam, that part of what keeps that fence work so current is that there's so much of it is the horse's responsibility, and the horse still has to accept guidance from the rider.
Exactly.
So that carries through.
You know, I think a lot of horses, from the time they're broke as 2-year-olds or long this time of the year, coming twos and stuff, that they get so many circles and arena drills. So, you know, a horse has just so many stops in him, and I think you guys can relate to that. They're just going to go to the ground. Just a handful of times. There's great horses that they'll stop on the road just like they will in the arena with a good ground. But I think that those horses need, when a lot of people don't have the space to go ride them outside, and let them be horses. You know, there's a way to just ride one and not have to be dinking with him all the time. And you know, we see great fence runs now. We do. There's no question about it. But then you'll see a horse come through there, and he'll run and do his fence turns with a little bit of loose rein, and he's rating the cow, and he's not fudging. He's getting where you want to go, you know, and it's really special, you know. Some of those horses I'll use back in the day. Special Effort won the Triple Crown in the quarter horse racing. Dash for Cash, back in his day, broke Jet Deck's track record at Los Alamitos out of the one hole, and there hadn't been an allowance race run one all year out of the one. He run down there in 21:17 with about 6 lengths of light, and the best horses going. So you see horses like that, you know, that do that. And Secretariat's another horse of yesterday that could run today. Mm-hmm. You know, if he was here, they'd all have a lot of trouble. You know, they would. So, but anyway, be as it may.
Same thing with it. When did you start? When do you remember hanging around the cow horse?
You know, Russell, I didn't grow up in it. I grew up here. I know Bobby Ingersoll had the first shot back when the snaffle bit first started, and him and Ronnie Richards and Tony Amaral and them guys that come by, our kind of third string kind of Gildens or whatever. I always wanted to do it, but it wasn't in our vocabulary then, with the cutting horses and the roping horses and all this stuff.
You guys were super into the cutting and the roping back in those days.
Yeah,
right?
and the halter and
No,
whatever,
Yep.
So anyway, be as it may, Bobby, I've known him all my life. Ronnie, just about the same way, and Tony, of course, he's been gone for a while, but Les Volt, he come down, he bought a horse or two, So I mean, it was, I don't know why, but it's just like trading horses. You'll find one that you like in California, and there's probably one 20 miles of your house, same kind of horse.
Right.
You don't do it. It just
Right.
sounds better,
Right.
Yeah.
So
Went to Texas and got one.
So in those days, I mean, educate me a little. Was there any cow horse at all back here, or was it just? I mean, was it strictly in? I mean, I know we talked about it come up being the California range cow horse, but was there any variation of it back here? Or was it just strictly the cutting and the roping back here? And
cutting and reining and the roping and things like that. I can't remember what year, but Daddy got a big 50,000 added Derby here at Fort Worth back in the day
for the range cow horse.
for the rain cow horse, and all the guys come, and it was a good show. Got all the money and the cattle donated, but I think that was to help the NRCHA at the time to kind of get it off back in here. But that, I can't remember what year it was, Chris, but it was 80 something.
Really?
Yeah.
But probably back then, to make a living, you have to have some monthly shows, and you couldn't train cow horses for when there's cuttings and ropings every weekend.
Well, I mean, the cutting was our bread and butter here, and the roping, and we roped and roped calves, and back when I was small, I never did dally at all. We tied on, and you'd get step off the heading horse and go tie the square knot, So anyway, that was back years back, Be as it may, it is. So
When's the first time you think that you saw the cow horse showing up here, where it would be something that you could train at and go to some weekend shows at?
I don't really, Russell. I don't remember. They would have maybe one or two shows a year somewhere, around. I'm not even saying in this area. Maybe Amarillo or somewhere up there, and it just wasn't feasible to train those horses. And we had horses that didn't make cutting horses, but they were really broke, and they handled well, and they changed leads, and they turned, and they spun. You could do all of it on them, but there just wasn't anywhere to go. We, when I was, I don't know, I didn't even have my driver's license, I don't think, 15 maybe. My dad had a roan horse that we kept around here, and he took me to one youth show, and I won my first saddle on that horse, and I roped calves on him and showed him in the reining and done all this stuff, So anyway, with that being said, after that, Ronnie came down and bought that horse. His registered name was Panama Pat, and they took him out there, and they won everything on him, Ronnie did. And I think that horse might have won the stock horse championship they had somewhere out there, like the 4-event. Yeah. So we sold horses that went out there and did well, but as far as having a monetary value of training a cow horse or a horse down the fence, we just it wasn't here.
So could you say that there's been no real industry for the cow horse here till after the World Show came here to Fort Worth, the Cow Horse World?
I would say so. I think it might have kicked off, Russell, simply because I know Larry Bell and Dan and myself, I got a bunch of sponsors for that thing. And as it went on, they were having, SRCHA was having some shows then around even before that. So I'm going to say, golly.
So mid-90s or so would be.
As a ballpark.
Because I remember like Carl McQuistion and Steve Metcalf maybe.
Well, but they'd go to Colorado and stuff. Carl would, but the SRCHA was in its infancy then, and then Larry and myself got a hold of the SRCHA, and we got some money raised and gathered in it, and put on some shows and some added pre-futurity things. And
Yeah,
Glenn,
that's the time I remember. Me and Todd, we moved back here, and you guys were super involved in running that deal.
Yeah, and we were proud to do it. It's something I enjoyed. I hadn't ever been around it all that much, but I didn't mind. I enjoy it. That's a great event.
Sure.
It is.
You probably had to know when you started that it was going to fit back here on Sam.
Well, yeah, and what I kept telling the group there when we decided to start the World Show is that and fast forward to now, it serves more members, that show, than any other shows that we put on or NRCHA puts on, because it costs so much to go now. The people would pick either the Derby at Paso or where the snaffle bit was at Reno, and, this and that and the other. And when it all transpired to here, it's more easy to fly into DFW, or people come out of Canada, 3 or 4 provinces up there, from New York, from Florida, to here they came. And we put the Derby in there. Then I got Penny Youngblood to put the Circle Y Derby in, gave us some money, and we got that started simply to try to let the guys fill up their trailers to come, to get this thing started, So anyway, hindsight is always 20/20, but we were passionate enough to try to keep this thing going and get it better. And as years go by, the World Show, the only thing I've been after them to do is add more money to those classes and make it worth the time to come to win a little money. And I think in 2020 here, we're going to have a big kick in there from Texas money, and the World Shows are going to get a lot better.
Yeah, it's going to be outstanding.
You bet.
Very excited about that.
You bet.
Well, like I say, I think a lot of people maybe don't realize how instrumental you were in getting a lot of this stuff moved over here, and just the overall promotion of the Rain Cow Horse.
Well, and two, it's it takes a nice arena. Stephenville was, money-wise, was okay, and usually that time of the year in February, it's not that bad. And damn, we had ice storms, we had snowstorms, we got everything all one year there, and the seating wasn't very comfortable. But anyway, we had it. So anyway, we got it going, and thank God it's to Fort Worth now.
I don't remember you not being involved, but I wasn't back here early. I do remember going to a pre-futurity in Benbrook.
Yeah, and I think, Russell, the first time I met you was at a pre-futurity at Ardmore.
I remember that one.
Yeah.
I think I went to Benbrook first, and then Ardmore was after, wasn't it?
Yeah, we moved it up there. And
I'm going to take that back. Benbrook wasn't a pre-futurity. It was a post-futurity, because I drove to Idaho and showed there and came straight through Kansas to the Benbrook futurity.
I can't remember back, but that's the first time I saw Russell was there.
So that was before the World Show, wasn't it, Sam?
Oh, yeah. The World Show had never started.
So there was probably a little bit of industry here, but mostly those guys like Metcalf and all those guys that Robert Chow and them that were training were having to do a lot of hauling to make it work, huh?
Well, I think so. And they put on a show, or maybe one show every 2 months or something, NRCHA, and, everybody, of course, the boxing is a big number deal now, and it was then. People, weren't feel safe going down the fence. So anyway, with that, it all, I know Steve had horses, and Robert had horses, and then Crawford moved back here, and then Ron came, and, you had to up your game.
How much did the industry rely on the AQHA class of the cow horse before the World Show for the NRCHA came to Fort Worth? Was it common that there were cow horses at the AQHA shows?
Yes. Before the World Show started, they had some. Yeah, not all of them did, but some did.
We sure had some big ones there in Stephenville right before that deal.
Oh,
Aaron
yeah.
Grigsby and them put that show on, and
sure,
a bunch of people would roll in here that week before. And we'd get through there and do the reining, shoot you the rope, cut, rein, do everything at that quarter horse show that week, then just stay over. stay at them.
Yeah, exactly.
As far as the horse flesh goes, Sam, you've probably seen from the time when the third string cutters, fourth string, 10th string cutters were being taken off to the cow horse versus now where it feels like people are realizing you can't take that second ring cut, third string cutting horse and go be competitive anymore in a cow horse. The level has.
Yes, yeah. You're exactly right, Russell. But back in those days of the early the Reno or whatever, there'd be a horse that would excel in the herd work, or then here come Todd Bergen and Crawford that could do the reining, and John Slack. And those guys, and then our NRCHA judges of the day didn't get to see those kind of horses much, and so they would mark them probably more than they had coming, as we know today, and they'd get a jump, and then they weren't too good on the fence. But the old regime had the fence work figured out. Mm-hmm. But here, these new guys coming in, they had to learn how to work a cow, and then their reining was better, and then the cow work stepped up for them, and then I'm not talking about any of the Hall of Famers. That's not what I'm talking about. But they didn't work as hard at the reining as those other guys had to work on the cow to get the deal. And so they kind of, I'm not saying they passed them up, but they got even with them.
Sure.
So.
Well, and then the thing about those guys being so consistent in the reining, there's no draw to it. They got to, when those guys walked in here, Crawford, Bergen, and Slack, and all them guys.
Yeah, sure.
There was a bunch more too.
Yes.
Came.
Yes.
They had a solid 218 coming in one event that they could count on. Whereas even the guys that were great in the fence, you could still draw out, but you could still make a little mistake. Them guys came in, if they could put a fence work together, they already had the rein work in their pocket.
Well, they did, and back in early times when I first started going to Reno, to judge or whatever, they would just kind of they just kind of kept the cows out. That's about it. Everybody was worried about the herd work. And now there's some great herd horses. They're good in the reining, and they're good down the fence. So any 20 horses that come back to the finals has a shot of winning something. Pretty big check.
I watched it this year from the booth. So I watched it all, and I was amazed at, in the past, when you get to the finals, there's about 5 great horses in there fighting it out. Yep. Hey, there was nothing in those open finals that didn't have a chance to win it this year. It was really.
I agree. In the depth, used to back in the 80s, you could just almost tell what horses were going to come back and do well after the go-round. There's a handful of them, 4, 5, 6 horses that had a legit shot of winning it. And I agree with Russell 100%. Last year, any horse that made the finals had a shot. They sure did. They really did.
And I think the same thing, like you were talking about, the older riders used to keep all their information. Now the information is so available that you're seeing tons of riders that you haven't seen much before, or maybe you don't know that well.
Or have never seen before.
And here they are. Yeah. Right here knocking on first place. And I appreciate that. I think that's really great for the industry.
It is.
Because it doesn't feel like you have to be in it forever to be able to win. Greg used to tell me, hey, when you first start, you never get what you deserve. Been here a while, you get about what you deserve, and when you've been here a long time, you get way more than you deserve. And he says, I've been here a long time. I think that's the way it should be. Yeah. But it isn't that way no more, is it, Sam?
No, it's not. And Don Dodge told me a long time ago, he said, Sam, you got to really work to ruin a good horse. You have to really work at it. And these horses have so much ability, and they're I'm not saying they're all easy to train, but they're easier to train than them old cold-blooded things we used to have.
Yeah, I'd love for you to expound on some of that and just hear a little more about some of them guys you grew up with your dad, of course, Matt Lockroth, and going on with Don Dodge and some of them guys, and talk a little more about the early days.
Well, when I was a kid, I didn't I didn't hang out with the kids. I was, you look back and you're amazed at who you were around and who helped you and this and that and the other. And Dale Wilkinson, great friend of ours, used to come and stay with us a lot. Don and, of course, my dad, Bubba Cassio, people like that. And, you just don't realize it till they're all gone. What, as a young person, 15, you're out there, you're riding, you're doing all you can do, and little things those guys could tell you. And I think about them every day when you ride a horse, and Don used to say, he said, before you do something to a horse, you need to think about what you're going to do to him first, instead of a slap happy kind of deal, and that really resonated with me and has stuck with me, so I just think people with a big string of horses, you got to you're just as good as your help is, now. If I don't care if you got 3 lopers and they're all warming them up and you're doing this and that and the other, maybe this one horse that's a little tough or whatever needs more time. He just needs riding more. I think that the trainers that spend the time on certain horses, and they do a lot of it themselves, and this and that, and I think you have to, that horse has to be a friend to start with. He can't, intimidation's not going to work very much at all. So anyway, I think as we all have our whole life, we work more at night from 3 on, so anyway, a guy asked me one time here not too long ago, he said, what was it like being in Gainesville working around your dad? And I said, well, there wasn't much going on between 12 and 3, midnight and 3 in the morning. So, he that man worked hard, and the results show that, So, but anyway, be as it may, I was very fortunate to grow up around those guys, and I hear people talk. Everybody's got Dodge stories, but we were real close up till he passed away. But anyway, through that, they all want to use him as an example. But and the truth of the matter, he had a hard shell, but he was a very giving person. If he liked you, he might chew you out one day and come back and give you a bridle next day. That's the kind of guy he was. So anyway, as far as between now until back then, all the guys have an easier way of learning. They got the videos, they got the DVDs, they've got this, that, and the other. And what I see some young people have done in the past, they'll go to my house, they'll come to my house, or they'll go to Ron's, and Ron will tell them a little something different. And they keep changing it up on those horses, and they don't give those horses a chance to really absorb, So not that we may train, or our answers or what we tell them might be just a little bit different, but they don't. There's no shortcuts. Right. I'll just put it that
kind of
way.
Looking for that instant gratification, looking for that one trick that's gonna fix it all.
Well, and I've dealt with a few non-pros and amateurs and youth through my life. The ones that are really dedicated that can spend the time, and most every good non-pro amateur type person, youth, they all spent the time in the saddle. As you know, we can have a horse trained, and then you put one of those people on them, and then that horse changes. We all know that. And but those better riders that can school one a little bit theirself, and you help them, that horse has a little bit more respect than they do from just putting one on, let them go around kicking them in the belly, and first thing you know, you can't stop one from here to Thackerville, Oklahoma.
Probably the biggest difference and probably the biggest struggle for the cow horse to get big, Sam, is with the 3 events, it's not easy, or it's practically impossible to train one so well that a non-pro can't mess it up. Whereas in the reining and the cutting, it's easier. It's still not easy, but it's easier to make one to where a non-pro can step on. Whereas in the cow horse, even if they do it wrong, they have to get in the saddle a certain amount of hours to be able to get through 3 events. It's just not possible with no dedication to get through it.
Well, and I've seen it from the cutting on through the whatever discipline you're going to do, Russell. it's better to have a horse that they can win first, second, third, fourth, they can place on, and maybe you have to show him. And a lot of people try to step them up, and then they have to get back on them and show them again. And I think the trainers have to train the horse to fit that person. That's whether you're roping, whether you're cutting, whether, you can't push him here, tell him here, go there. They don't know where they're going. They can't tell you if they cut a Charolais cow or a black cow, So that horse has to be fairly solid for them. And if the open rider comes in there and shows him, and they should be satisfied by not winning first, and keep that horse solid for those people that's paying you to ride him. You bet.
I think that that helps us with our owners in this event, is they have to love it, because it takes more dedication. It just takes more. You just cannot show up at the cutting and step on and have him schooled up and get through three cows. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because the 3 event deal is a whole different game.
Well, it is. Once you get the herd work away, it's done. And then you do the rein work now, and or the rein work first now, which I think is good. It's a good move. That way, for the people putting the show on, they don't have to have the cattle there an extra day or two or whatever. You can come near having your horse ready to show in the reining instead of showing the herd work, and then go to spend all night trying to get him put together for the reining, and then here comes fence work. So I think as just looking back, of course, we have the practice pens now. Used to, there wasn't much of a practice pen at all. You had to have him trained. I'll use the cutting horses. There's no practice pen. You had to go show. If you went to the stock shows, Denver, Fort Worth, Odessa, pulled in there, and you couldn't get them out. And you worked during the rodeo. They'd work you'd have a long round, which was a go round. Then they'd take the high horses back and work in the 4 horses in each rodeo performance. They run those cows in on that hard ground, and you worked, and the judges sat on a horse, and but you couldn't leave. You had to stay there. So anyway, it did 2 things. It promoted the sport. A lot of people would come through the barns after it was over with, after the rodeo, and they was looking at the horses and this and that and the other, and, potential customers. Yep. A lot of them came through that way, so.
I wonder if there's a way that we can get back to that a little bit and be able to promote those horses, or if we're to such an age of specialization that, it's rough to draw like that, because the ground's not going to be exactly what you want, and this and that, and we're all just kind of, it's a little bit more of an age of prima donnas, myself included, to where, am I going to go, if there's no money added up in it, are you really going to go just for the promotion of your sport? Are you going to go use your horse up there,
and 2, these horses are shown as through their 3-year-old year at a couple of 3, maybe futurities. And then you go from there to the derbies, and then you go through their 5-year-old year through the derbies, and then you keep them in the 2 rein for the Bridle Spectacular or the Hackamore or whatever. And, that it's hard for a horse to stay sound and show hard that many times, to where you got to try to win some money. That usually, my thought process, maybe I've been completely wrong, but some horses don't make futurity horses. So why ruin him or cripple him trying to get him to his, but that gets back to the customer, because all they think's a futurity, that's a big one, but if you handle your owners right, and then this horse comes together in the spring of his 4-year-old year, and then he's successful for 2 years and do all this, and then you got a horse that hadn't had all the runs on him, and now with the monies in the Bridle Spectaculars, you go through your process with the Hackamore and then the 2 rein, and there's money to be won there, and then you can hold that horse over a year or 2. You always see horses that come to the, I'm going to say, the World Show in the Bridle, And you can show them in either the 2-rein and the bridle, or the hackamore and the 2-rein, I guess. I believe you can. So anyway, because it's last year's year, so then you see some of those guys pull those 2 reins off, and they try to show them straight up in the bridle, and they go do the rein work well, and they do the fence work. I mean, they do the runs and the turns good, and then cow does a little something to them there in the circle, and they're out there in la land. and the horse is really hadn't really come to himself yet in the bridle. So you see that. But we welcome the entries. I'll just put it that way. I'm glad they're coming.
Well, you got to go somewhere, or you can't justify the training fees.
Well, the old saying is, if you don't wait on the horse, he'll make you wait later.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
That's a true one. It is, however, a lot easier now to keep those horses going with having the derbies and all the bridal spectaculars than what it was. Maybe not so much when you started, but when I started, it was just the futurity.
Yeah.
And after that, all you had was a horse show horse. So after that, you're just hitting county fairs and having fun.
Well, I'll use the NCHA. I'll use it. It used to be the futurity and the derby. And then to make an open horse, you wouldn't show him, really haul him anywhere till he is 7 or 8 years old, and he was trained. I mean, that. So we would haul those horses around locally here to little AQHA shows, show them in the junior cutting, and 2 or 3 times, and that's how we got them ready to go, and try to finish a horse or a horse that you wanted to keep, make an open horse out of. So that's kind of how we did it.
The crossover from the past, like Ron Rawls had a Chicken Time who cut, reined, and then did the bridle.
Mm-hmm.
We're not seeing near the amount of crossover that you saw when you were younger. What do you think about that as for the industry?
Well, I think it's the specialty has been driven by the industry. You can't be shy here in the reining. Just say you go to the NRCHA reining, you got to have a horse that can go do the deal. I just don't think that there's that many people now that do multiple events, and there's guys that rope and cow horse. We know that, but they're still struggling a little bit in the herd work, and I'm not singling anybody out, but it's true. But I think what's really got better the last 8 or 10 years is the herd work. I mean, used to, I can still see it. The horse would stop 15 foot short of the walls, the sides of the arena, and the herd or the turnback men run driving back over where he's at. We've seen that. We've been through that. And when we put the position and control box as a 1-point penalty, it made them get out there where they're supposed to be. Go stop the cow and not be in a short deal. So I think the person that really changed the cutting, the herd work. It says herd work. How do we cut that cow? Did we just peel him off the side? We have to have a deep cut now, which we always did. But I think Boyd Rice had the biggest deal because he cut really good, and he's comfortable there, and he did it, and then he had to learn how to do the reining and the fence work and all this stuff, and he's done well, So anyway, with this being said, I think Boyd probably changed
the herd
work,
and probably more of cutting them out of herd than what he did out in front of the herd. He was and is so consistent at 3 good smooth cuts.
Yeah.
So he just starts out ahead, whereas there's so many people that when you're judging, there is no way to plus those cuts, and they need to be a minus.
Well, there's a lot goes into that, Russell. A plus cut is somebody that rides in and comes out with a cow. You can see him coming with him, and but they keep coming till they get by all the extra cows, and they drop their hand or give a horse some slack. And to me, that's a plus in the center of the arena or the middle half. I'm going to use, they say a third. It's the middle. It's a big half, and then the quarters are on the outside. You see somebody coming through there, and they got a good cut coming, and all of a sudden they wind up with an extra cow running straight at that fence over there. So the best it can be is a check minus cut. I mean, you're and rightfully so. You should handle that herd and not ruin 5 cows cutting one. And we don't see that as much as we used to. Get tagged in there, and then used to. I think the score sheets has really helped us, Russell, because you can give credit to that cut, and then the control and everything falls into one deal. So. But anyway, there's just so many variables on the cut. Just say you're first, second, or third in the set, and you ride in, and herd holders know kind of what you're looking for. Y'all talk before you go down there. And that cow sitting on the corner, well, you ride in there and you drive him out, even though he keeps coming and he's out and out where he needs to be. That's just a check cut because you didn't incur any herd to go through or whatever, And a lot of times it's just like the water parting, and this guy comes up through there and he trots right up to this cow and he gets where he wants to go. Who knows how the cows separated there, but he come out of the middle of that herd or off the back fence with this cow, so you got to give him some credit there. Yeah, that's not easy to do, especially on a horse you've blown down the fence a lot.
Well, and I feel like that was more evident to me after I judged than it was before I judged. How much the cut sets up the whole run.
It's just like going down the fence. It's where you are on that corner when you leave that corner where you are on that cow. That sets the whole run up. If you're behind, you're going to be behind. You leave a big gap there, and you open the arena up for that fence run, and that cow's got the whole arena to go to. It's basically the same. Any really good run in the herd work, 3, 4, 5, 6 kind of run, they've all got at least 2 really good cuts on there. They do.
Not chopping one off of the back of the herd that's rolling by them.
Well, cutting the last cow. Yeah. So, but be as it may, the times change. I think what most judges have to really realize in their whatever they're doing, the herd work, rein work, or fence work, what is a 70? What's a 70 score? That's the hardest score to mark. What's a 70? My 70 might be Chris's 72, or it might be yours 71. But as I mean, at any of the 3 disciplines, But I like in the reining, I'm no NRHA judge, never been a member. But I try to keep that 0 as tight as I can and either give them some credit or take a little bit away, in each maneuver. So anyway, I think if people will concentrate on, the judges will concentrate on what is a 70, and what's a 70 on the fence work? Well, he had kind of formed turns. He was close. He was tight. How about the circles? Well, the circles were okay. I mean, credit earning, just checks. And we know what the big runs are. The big runs are easy to mark.
Easy, yeah.
But the runs that's got the ups and downs in them is the ones.
Those are the ones on Sam.
Those are the tough ones.
So people, especially riders, sometimes will start whining about their score not being high enough, and you got to keep that judging positive, keep it positive. Well, I feel like when you try to judge positive and you give a little more than you should, sure, you're being nice to that guy, but you cheated all the other ones.
Well, here's my summation of it today is, let's take the herd work. And you're sitting there 71 or 2 on 2 cows. That's kind of the way we do it. And just say this guy chips the first cow. It's a check cut. but this is a pretty nice horse. You can tell he's a nice horse, and he stays in the middle or in the half.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's just say a 72, and then say all of a sudden he runs in there to cut a third cow, and when he drops his hands, he's got 15 seconds left. And this horse, you're kind of liking him. I mean, he's okay. And then this horse has a big miss. I mean, a big miss. And this cow runs over there, and the herd holder is in the place he's supposed to be. But if that herd holder wasn't there, he's either got a 3 or a 5-point penalty.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, in my thinking, I'm going to take a -2 on excessive help, simply because he saved him from a 3 or 5-point penalty. So with that, I've got a and I got a minus in control. I got a minus in eye appeal, +2, that's a 65, pretty much on that cow.
Mm-hmm.
So 65 and a 71 is what? It's a 6-point difference. He's a 68 or 9 kind of run, you know? And what I see is you let somebody have a big hole in a run, whether it's a fence work or the drug a lead for 2 quarters in the reining or something. And then you have this herd work that should be below 70, but sometimes he marks a 70 with that big hooey in there. Yep. And here's a rider with a horse that's been really solid all the way through. He's a 16, say, all the way through, and then has a pretty decent fence work, and he marks a little bit more, or reining mark. This guy that had the big hole that got an extra couple of points, which he probably shouldn't have had, and he knocks this guy out of the finals by a half. Yes, and that's what I think, that when there's a big hole in a run, that horse can make it back, but the horse that's been really pretty damn solid through there the whole time, he misses the open finals, or misses the intermediate finals, or whatever finals he falls in. I just think that we need to get a little more information out for especially the herd work. A lot of the judges aren't ever going to judge a limited aged event for NRCHA. Big part of them's not. Mm-hmm. But they do go judge those in the areas, in the affiliates out, and everybody's having the derbies and stuff, in the herd work. There's no separation much in the, people just don't have the information to really mark it like it should. That's my opinion. And it's just a fence work, you go have 2+ turns, and then you go to the middle, and this cow gets away from you, and you're chasing him out there 3 circles to try to get to him, and you never really get to him. So he plus the rate, plus the turns, and then the position and control's the biggest box on the sheet as far as you get 1 mark in that. So he goes from a 2 or 3 run down to 68 or 7 or lower, and I don't think, I just think that we, being positive, and I'm always been a positive person, but when it's time not to be positive, you have to go there too. You have to take a horse down, 66, 60, maybe 65. Who knows what it's going to be at with penalties and links by or lost work advantage. But that position and control box is a big one for me for the fence work,
It's got to leave a mark.
Yeah, it does.
You got to leave a mark, because what if you didn't do that?
Right.
Then he's good.
Yeah.
And then, you know what? That might be a great horse, might be a great rider, just not today.
Not today. We can't go over past performances. It's what happens today.
So speaking of great fence runs, why don't you talk to us a little bit about Legendary Colonel and that world champion run that is one that I remember very clearly.
Well, I bought that horse off of Annie at Stephenville when he was just turned 4. And anyway, I took him home, and I rode him there, and that horse was a hard horse to change leads on. I mean, he'd kick right over his head half the time. You know, he is a little rascal. So anyway, I spent a year riding him there, and I logged him some, which he had. Horse wasn't, I mean, he was pretty live, that horse was. So anyway, and then I went to tracking some yearlings around on him, heeling them and this and that and the other. Then I went to roping on him. And then when I started back showing him that horse took it a lot better. He sure did. And he's a smart horse. He's a horse that you couldn't pick on. You know, you had to do something to him. And if you was going to do it about 3 days before you showed him, you know, because he'd tell off on you somewhere, you know. So anyway, he wasn't all easy, but he was a good horse. He's a good horse.
What about that run in particular?
At the World Show?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I tell you what, we there for several years we had this straight little blacks up there, and you know how that round pin is, you know. So anyway, you know, you just go with what you think's good, and that horse read a cow really good, and we get a couple of plus turns, and everybody'd had a little trouble, and got him circled up there, and I kind of gave him a little bit of slack. I wasn't holding him real tight because he didn't like that anyway. And when it's all said and done, here we are. We snuck by him, and I think Murphy might have been second on old Sparking Train or something that year. So anyway, that horse was good for me. He and you know, I roped on him like 2 years at the Texas Classic, and I broke the barrier on one and the Redbud, and I put like 100 heading points on him there. In 2 different circuits for 2 years.
I know that run left a heck of a mark on me. I don't know, were you there? Do you remember that, Russell?
I saw it on video, yeah.
That rascal come out of the air and eats on his hind parts now and backs him all the way down the arena. I mean, shoot fire. I think you were 3/4 the way still boxing this thing, and it's snorting and blowing, and I don't know. I figured they'd blow you off, but they left you on this rascal, and you got him turned around and rolled up there and, made one of them corners as textbook of a floating corner, is what I call it, you know, because you really weren't up against that fence because that cow, I mean, that's just where you had to take him from. But, man, just right in the right spot right there, and got him back over there to that fence and swallowed that rascal up. That's what that's supposed to look like right there now.
Yeah,
so,
he was a good horse for us.
Wow.
He was. He's a good horse. He was. He's a nice horse.
That's how you're supposed to handle a bad cow in the boxing.
Mm-hmm.
So
I didn't know if I knew how to handle him, but I trusted my horse. I knew what I'd have done to him out in the pasture. I'd have roped him, drug him back up there. Anyway, there we are.
There seems to be a common theme. We get to hearing a lot about these good runs that involve a lot of trusting your horse and trying to get the heck out of the way.
That's where it's at. If they can't think of it, you can't think of it for them. Mm-hmm. You're too slow.
That has to do with a lot of it. You know, if you have to push him here and make sure you got his rib up here and this, like Dodge always said, he said form's not the only, not everything, it's the only thing. And that goes with if you're roping or whatever, you know, whatever discipline you go at.
What do you see from the judge's chair the most? Like, what's the one thing that just irritates the heck out of you the most that these riders are giving you that you're just like to slap them or something, you know? Like, I mean, just quit. Would you stop doing that? I'm trying to mark you. And you
won't
let me. Like, give us a gem here that folks that we can share a little.
Well, here's what I see, and I know we got away with it. It started at San Angelo to get in the 3rd turn, maybe a 4th turn. If that cow's strong, just stay with him, you know. And I see people sometimes get 2 turns. They think they're going to mark a big score with 2 turns, and it's really not that. Sometimes they get it pulled off. Sometimes they mark a big score. But when you pull off that fence and go to the circle, if you're not with that horse or whatever, or I mean the cow, and then you get drug around out there a little bit. What I've been seeing them do is, like, they get a left turn, right turn, and they're gonna go to the circle instead of going to the outside. I call it the scenic route. They switch sides and go to a left circle out of the right turn. And if the cow's leaning, whichever way she's leaning, but those that take the outside and they can't get there and they wind up down kind of in the end of the arena, wherever they're at, and instead of having that cow in the middle of the pen. You know, I see that. I still see that. But a lot of the guys, girls too, they whichever way that cow's leaning, just say you get a left turn and a right turn, and the cow come in on the cow end, but she's headed to the opposite end where you came in. And if they change sides, they can get to the cow quicker, and then they have more control of the cow. That's what I see.
I think a lot of people get scared right there, or they think that, well, I've come off here and I've started into this circle and I've got nowhere to go but finish this circle, instead of thinking that, I can change sides here. And,
yes,
you know, there's not a penalty. I think people get, like I say, they feel like they're committed, and they're going to get hurt if you don't do that.
Or forced into it.
And
we've all been there.
Right. Yeah. No, absolutely.
So anyway, I think, you know, they talk about the loop, you know, a cow that jumps off a horse's butt, you can't help that. I mean, he's just stupid, you know. But if they get in there and get after him and come again, even if they get their first turn on a strong cow, and then they come back and they get the second turn and that cow shoots out behind them, and no fault of the horse or the turn or the rider, if they would, then they think they sometimes have to circle there. Mm-hmm. Why not just loop him on the second end, go to the middle of the pen and get your turn, and you're out in them wide open to get to him and get him circled. Right. I think indecision creates a lot of that stuff. I do.
Let one mistake turn into 4 more mistakes. Right.
Well, sure. Mm. Yeah, sure.
There's some big time runs that crumble, wallering around down there on that out gate, trying to get the circles.
Yeah. And or the horse runs out of, you know, we don't know what happens. Right. But instead of trying to get on your second turn and trying to get there to circle, why not just loop him and go to the middle and get another turn? You're going to wind up with more points. Mm-hmm. You know, when you fill the cards up,
sure,
with check pluses and pluses or whatever, it's better than a minus in a working out of position. You know,
yeah, darn right.
So instead of losing 2, you'll gain 2 back doing it the other way. You know.
It does feel like we're kind of gravitating back to giving more credit to circling in the center of that arena rather than putting up with circling on the ends.
Well, and it should be, Russell. It should be, because you have more control of the cow. You can show your horse, if you've got a good horse and he can get there and he can run. I always, you know, you think of the soundness of a horse. It's easier for a horse to run straight and make a turn on the fence. 3 turns on the fence, it's way easier on him than making 2 and trying to chase him down out there in a circle, trying to catch up to him. You'll come near crippling a horse there than you will running straight and making a turn. Mm-hmm. That's just my opinion.
And also, most of the time when you're circling off your second turn, you're forced. You're forced to the circle because you don't feel like you're not in the right position to get back on the fence and go down for that third turn, start on that middle marker where you're supposed to. So if you're forced on it, what's the chances of it being a great set of circles?
Well, that horse, a lot of cow horses can run. There's not a lot of them that can really run and stay under control. Mm-hmm. So we see a horse when he gets extended, even on the fence turn, when he's giving you all he's got just to get there. You know, that turn might not be as good as you might think it might be riding that horse. And you take I'll use a good horse for an example, that buckskin horse that Sarah rode, Chris. Yep. You know, that horse could fly.
Sure.
And he never put his feet in a bad spot. He never stumbled. He never did anything. He could just run, but he was under control, you know. Mm-hmm. And so many horses, they get extended to that point that they lose the stop, the turn. I'm not saying they all do, but you'll see some that can't run, and then they try to circle, and then they can't catch up to him at all. You know,
isn't it exciting and give you a warm fuzzy feeling? See them horses circling on the wrong lead.
usually,
I hate that.
Well, I do too, but I think 2 things that happen. I think when a person, I'll use the non-pros, amateur people, they don't know. They know where they're at, but they don't know how they got to a spot in a run down the fence. And anyway, everybody in the grandstands hollering, screaming at them. The trainers, get there, run, get there. And well, damn, it's sometimes it's not conducive to. You almost want to take your clipboard and hold it up where you don't watch. You don't see them bite the dust out there. But,
clickety.
yeah, jerking
kick him again. It'll be all right.
Then they get then when they come in with a drag, they're picking up 6 or 8 shoes out there and all this stuff. So anyway, that's fun. But anyway, it's all about the position and control and all of it.
Well,
right on. I think pretty good. Sam, got anything you want to just add?
I think the rein cow horse industry is in a really great place right now, and I think going forward here, we need to get some new sponsors if we can. Have this thing to where that futurity pays down really good now. It does, but getting back to the World Show and the world's greatest, we're at a good. There's a lot of people that live in Weatherford or horse people that, from around the area. They always come to that, and as we know, it's standing room only there. So anyway, I think the rein cow horse is the best show in town because it's a little bit like NASCAR. You don't know where you're gonna have a wreck out there or something, and it's fun to watch. It's either you go to the NCHA futurity and watch them get a set of horses in and take a hour and a half a set and take 40 minutes to settle a set of cattle, and that's
hard.
Well, it is hard, and it's hard. It's great to see the finals of the semis, but it's a long process, and I know they use right at 10,000 head there at Fort Worth and it's all fresh cattle. So anyway, it is what it is.
I know one thing I was going to ask you, Sam. You've been around this deal a long time, the horse industry in general, seen a lot of ebbs and flows in it. And, they teach history in schools because it tends to repeat itself. And so we're on a big upswing right now with the rein cow horse, everything moving here, and everybody's doing good. What are some things that we need to be cautious about as a association and as trainers as to things that are going to lend itself to slowing down that growth process, or some pitfalls that maybe sudden growth can bring on you?
Well, here's what I see. I see that, as long as we can get the intermediate money there for the snaffle bit, I think it's 50,000. Cinch used to do it. I don't know if they still do it. I hadn't kept up with it. But if we can add to that, I think, the level one, let people come in, start up there. I know Matt Cook did. He came to Reno the first time there.
Yeah, entered only in the level one.
Yeah, and it entered only in the level one. So with that being said, long as we, at the snaffle bit futurity this year, I think Russell and I touched on it here earlier. There, of course, I'm not active like I was back in the day. But anyway, you see people come that you've never heard of. You don't even know where they came from, and they're from the East Coast, West Coast, North, South, wherever. And that's great to see. And as long as we keep an even playing field and the judging is correct, I think that this thing will just keep going. I do. And, you're always going to level off. But I believe in Fort Worth, Cowtown is a place that's a really good fit there. And I know I enjoyed Reno. I enjoyed going out there and took bridle horses out there, but a futurity horse. But anyway, make a long story short, it has to. I believe that where it is now, and it's easier for people to fly in and out of and get there. And I just think as long as we keep it, our budget helps. I think the Texas money coming in is going to be a big deal for us. More money, more payout, more this, that. It's all about money, And the people that really love the sport And whether the ground's good or not, everybody has to show on it. But the Kaiser drags helped us 100% because you can change it from the reining to the fence work and not spend 2 days getting it ready to go, you know. So with that being said, I think it's all a positive deal, and a lot of guys never had the opportunity to cut, and the cutting at Fort Worth and having the herd work in there, you know, that's a pretty historic place. So,
Yeah, I remember we did that Mars Equine Youth World's Greatest, and they let them have that practice in there in the Will Rogers. And I'm sitting there thinking, man alive, think about this, doing a practice work in the Will Rogers Coliseum on a bed of white sand in front of these bucking chutes. Like, I wonder if these little boogers know how lucky they are right now.
It's kind of like the team roping back in the day. There's no numbers. We all grew up with no numbers, you know. You just had to enter up and take your shot, you know. And then the numbers come in, and all of a sudden here's these kids that's 13, 14, 15's already won 3 trucks and 6 trailers and $300,000. You know, they don't know what pressure is. They don't know.
Yeah.
You know, my definition of pressure, I heard Ron a little bit, you know, he'd get tight. You know what pressure is, Ron? Fear of failure.
Yes. Yeah.
It is.
I like it.
It is. Anyway, I enjoyed having you guys, and thanks for asking me to come on here.
You bet. Thank you, Sam.
Thank you for listening to episode 2 of Cowhorse Full Contact. Please like our Facebook page and follow us on Instagram to stay tuned for future episodes.